Wednesday, September 20th, and this is Geeknights. Tonight we discuss the anime Kemonozume. Let's do this!
Finally, we're back to a normal episode where we're not tired, we're not trying to do anything stupid, and I don't have to make a stupid voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that Pusser's rum is still staring me in the face.
Oh, wow, yeah, you didn't put it away, did you?
No, I didn't.
I think you're turning into a rummy. I mean, most of the stuff in that closet is rum.
Yeah, surprisingly, I have a lot of rum. However, not surprisingly, much of it is owned by Scott Johnson.
Well, if I did like alcohol, I think rum would be the alcohol of choice. Because, it's sugar. What's better than sugar?
I don't know. I really like whiskey and various liqueurs.
What's that? That's corn and stuff. If you're going to make alcohol out of something, it better be sugar or at least fruit.
Well, you'd probably be a wine drinker. Grapes.
Grapes are good. Not as good as sugar, though. Sugar is like the pure. You can't. It's tough to beat. That's all I can say. There's a reason they make candy out of sugar. All right. So what's happening in the news? It was real slow. There's no real anime and manga comics news out there, is there?
Yeah, my news, the only reason I even bring it up is because I was reading Slashdot, and the sheer number of people who are either misinformed or just stupid about the issue was driving me nuts. But I'll let Scott do his news first.
All right, well, about a year ago, there was a study called Debunking the Game Rating Myth. Do Game Ratings Matter? And they looked at 260 different video games, and they compared how well the games were rated in gaming magazines versus how well the games performed in the marketplace, how many copies they sold, how much money they made, and all that.
So what was the correlation they gathered?
Well, last year they did the study, and it turned out that game ratings don't matter. So they did the study again this year, and instead of doing it with 260 games, they did it with 1,200 games. And you know what the results were?
No, I don't.
Game ratings don't matter. Now, I know you, and you know me, and you know that we don't really pay attention or care about game ratings one shit.
In fact, the last game rating that actually mattered was way back in the day when TIE Fighter got 97% in PC Gamer. That was probably the most accurate rating a game has ever been given.
Yeah, I'm not saying the game ratings are inaccurate or accurate or whatever. I'm just saying that, people like us tend to not give a shit about them. We don't use them to make our purchasing decisions.
Honestly, the thing is, during the early PC gaming era, I think a lot of us did look at those ratings because there was no way to try out a lot of PC games before you bought them, short of pirating them. But a lot of your friends didn't have the same games you had. So a lot of people would read the reviews of games to figure out what to play, and there was really only a few sources of reviews. So I think a lot of people were influenced whether they realized it or not. But I don't think that has been the case for at least 7 or 8 years.
Yeah. Well, there is one situation I can see myself looking at game reviews. Let's say I was going to buy a game like, I don't know, a baseball game, a realistic baseball game. Well, there's a whole bunch of those, and I don't know anything about those games. So I might look at the reviews of every possible new baseball game this year and compare them. The thing is, I don't really buy those kinds of games, so I don't look at the reviews.
Well, more importantly, I would never trust a review by any sort of commercial company because pretty much,
no, absolutely not.
It seems that there's a lot of evidence that either the companies often send, slightly different versions, or they'll send the game along with, some fancy new toys.
Right. Now, this is exactly why I wanted to talk about this news, is that game companies think that the ratings are important, so they're basically bribing and finagling and public relationsing all the gaming media into giving them high review scores when the reviews don't actually matter. Why are you wasting your time and effort?
Probably the same reason a lot of people advertise on sites like Slashdot. The people who are most likely to run ad block.
I guess, but I guess the ads on Slashdot, though, tend to be ads that people who run ad block, even if they saw the ads, wouldn't be interested. So those ads are actually going to appeal to the person who visits Slashdot without an ad block.
Well, I think another factor, and it may sound funny, especially to people who don't know a lot about webcomics or anything, but I think Penny Arcade has single-handedly had a lot to do with this.
Oh, really?
Well, for one, I've found that most serious gamers these days, or at least a majority of them, seem to get almost all of their gaming-related news or the important stuff from Penny Arcade, at least opinion-wise.
I don't know. Penny Arcade really I think what it is like I read blogs like Joystick, Kotaku, Go Nintendo, all that sort of stuff, right? But those people, they don't give you the information. They don't cover every single game, and they don't tell you the release dates of everything and all that stuff. They just, they hit the high points and they put out interesting stuff. And Penny Arcade is sort of the same way. When there's something to say, the top story, they cover it. But I think that most people, not me, but most gamers out there seem to always go to IGN or GameSpy or whatever website like that to get, the complete breadth of information on all the games, what games are coming out this week.
Oh, yeah, for game information. I'm talking about purely trying to find out whether a game you've never played is worth playing.
I think another thing is that we aren't like super video gamers who buy video games every week and beat them every week and trade in games constantly.
We were,
but we were never at the point where we were like going to EB twice a week, trading in games, buying more, beating them in a couple days, and rinsing and repeating. We were never like that, and people like that, I think, tend to do the game reviews and the IGN a lot more than us, who just buy all the hits, and don't care so much about all the other video games because we don't have time for them. All right. The point is just that video game reviews don't matter, and stupid people at game companies think they do.
Yeah, I was stretching for anything to say because I didn't really care at all about Scott's news because I haven't looked at a video game review in over a decade.
The most recent video game review I looked at was in the EGM, which we got for free, and I didn't read it. I just kind of went, oop.
I read it. It was a terrible magazine.
It took me 5 seconds to read the whole magazine.
Anyone who pays money for that magazine is just an idiot.
Yeah, I only got it because it's free.
I mean, it's just there's nothing in it at all. It was just worthless.
There was nothing I didn't already know from the internet at all. There were some pretty pictures and a whole bunch of ads.
All right, so I'll get to my news, which is it actually is something that I was a little bit bothered by. Now, the news and the way it was portrayed was that vinyl record sales are skyrocketing.
Why? No one has a vinyl record player. How can that be?
Now, the news was that vinyl records are skyrocketing, and then the talk about the news and all the buzz about the news and the articles were implying that this is partly a revolt against the whole digital music medium where you get a music or a piece of music, but you don't own the physical thing to go with it, and that the ritual of the record is the reason that these sales are so high suddenly. The kids are rebelling against this new culture.
The kids are rebelling against the ritual of the record. We hate the ritual of the record.
No. And a lot of the talk went on, especially in the Slashdot comments, about how, furthermore, records were superior technology.
Oh, you want to talk about that?
Well, I want to talk about all aspects of this because, one, the news was completely misrepresented. Yes, record sales were up. They were all the way up to 1998 levels this year.
Which means almost dick.
Furthermore, the only records that are selling at all are singles, which singles aren't really selling. It's just that singles sell so poorly that if a record sells like 5,000 copies, that's a crazy deal because no one buys singles anymore, ever.
Wow, that sounds like comic book sales numbers. But I'm changed.
It really is. They were like, we sold 5,000 copies of the White Stripes single, and that's like such a tiny percentage of record sales, and not many copies of the White Stripes album were sold in vinyl at all.
Yeah, I actually have seen a vinyl White Stripes album in a store once. It was kind of freaking me out. I was like, whoa, what the hell? Vinyl of new stuff.
This one really reeks of a marketing effort to try to get kids to think that vinyl
that's what I was going to say.
Is hip and cool so that they'll buy it. It's kind of how Sudoku got popular. They tell everyone that it's popular, assuming that people will then buy it because it's popular.
Yep, I think we've talked about this on the show a lot, and I like the trend of, a lot of people don't recognize when a news story is actually trying to change the opinion that it professes already exists. And I am making my mission to, whenever this comes around, make it a news story on Geeknights and point it out to you. And this is, I'm 75% sure, this is a case of them trying to make vinyl big as opposed to vinyl being big and then them reporting on it.
Yeah, I mean, the news really made it out like vinyl is having its best year, it's skyrocketing, it's crazy, and no, it just did slightly less ass than it's done for the past decade.
Yeah, which means still crap,
now,
but smelling a little sweeter.
Before I get to the factual, objective part
about the technology of
the technology of vinyl, I want to give my opinion as to who buys vinyl. Now, this is not based on any research. This is based on my opinion, based on my anecdotal observations, and is based on my assumptions and inferences based on the data I have seen.
Mm-hmm.
The following types of people are the people who buy vinyl. 1, very old people.
Well, for us, that means 50 plus.
Yes, very, very old people.
There are people like my parents, they buy CDs. You know, I tell them not to, and they know, but they do it anyway. But if there was a CD they were going to buy, you know, they still have this nostalgic feel for vinyl. They have so many vinyls from their younger days, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. And if I was alive when they were alive, I would also have hundreds.
I thought you were going to say if I was alive today.
No, if I was alive in their age, then I would also have as many vinyls as they have. But if they went to a store today and they had a working turntable, which they probably will soon now that I got my dad a new receiver, and they saw a vinyl of the CD they were going to buy for about the same price, I imagine they might buy the vinyl and consider buying it just for that nostalgic feeling it gives them, you know, that they've had vinyl most of their lives and that's what they like.
Yes. Now, I do also think that constitutes a somewhat small amount of the vinyl purchases.
Oh, it does constitute a very small amount of the vinyl purchases.
The second type of person are breakbeat DJ types.
I didn't even think of them. That was smart.
That is the primary market for vinyl today. And I don't know how often I've talked about...
Let's not talk about that.
I'm not going to talk about my opinions of that kind of DJing, other than the fact that they buy a lot of vinyl, and that's probably one of the last legitimate uses of vinyl.
Yeah, okay. I think we'll leave it at that, because we'll not sway too far off track.
Yes, now the third group of people who are buying vinyl are people who, for whatever reason, have decided that it is culturally cool to be retro, and they think that it's hip to purchase vinyl. And I note that most of the vinyl that is not made for DJs is of underground, indie, whatever, rock, emo.
That's
and nothing
fine.
else.
That's fine. They can style it up all they want.
But it seems that most of the people who buy it, they'll say they have reasons for buying it, but it seems obvious that the only reason they buy vinyls is so that people will see them buying vinyls and they can talk about their vinyl collection.
Yeah, another thing is vinyls are real big, so you can display them in your house and people see them.
Most vinyl sales are singles and they're little.
Oh.
Yeah.
Anyway, and what is the fourth group? The fourth group which you're going to spend most of the time talking about?
We have a fourth group?
The audiophiles.
Oh, God, I wasn't even going to... See, those aren't people.
Okay.
All right, the fourth group are the audiophiles who claim that records sound better. Now, they don't just claim that it sounds better in a subjective, I like the sound of it way. They claim that it is
that's perfectly okay. Some people like the crackling noise. You know, it gives them a...
Though, to all you audiophile fuckers, before I get on to the actual meat of this, I want to note that when records started improving in the early days of records, audiophiles bitched then, saying that those records weren't as good as the earlier records because they had less distortion, and it sounded too sterile and cold and mechanical. The exact same bullshit arguments you've been making about CDs and DAT and everything now.
Yep.
Don't lie to yourselves. You got accustomed to a type of sound. You like that type of sound. You buy vinyl because the vinyl gives you that type of sound. Don't pretend that vinyl has higher fidelity. It does not. It empirically does not. There are so many things I can describe and explain as to why vinyl has terrible fidelity compared to CDs.
Yeah, I mean, you could theoretically store digital PCM data on a vinyl record and have a needle that physically feels the pits and converts that to zeros and ones and generates a perfect wave.
Okay.
But that is not how vinyl works, so it doesn't matter.
1, they claim that vinyl has a warmer sound that cannot be reproduced any other way. My counterclaim is simply that sound can be very, very easily recreated digitally because all it is dynamic distortion and a bunch of noise and hisses and pops. It's nothing special.
A very small algorithm could turn a perfect CD track into a track you could not distinguish from a vinyl track in a double-blind test.
2, they claim that vinyl, because it's an analog medium, is not limited in fidelity, while CDs and digital media, because of the sampling and the fact that they're digital, will sound hard and cold because they miss out on parts of the audio. My counterclaim is very simple. You can't make a physical medium with a little needle vibrating back and forth that precise. you lose most of the high end to hissing, and you can't have sounds below about 30 hertz because I'm not going to get into all the technical details because I was about to talk about like 5 different frequency ranges.
Yeah. The
Very
point
simply,
is that if you have a super audio CD, I'll shove it up your ass.
if you have a whole bunch of bass, for example, and you try to put that on a record, it'll knock the needle out of the track.
Yeah.
And in order to overcome the massive hissing and noise, you have to use an equalizer when you're putting the audio on the vinyl to super duper amplify the high end so it'll even sound it all over the noise. Now that is the counterclaim to the next argument they make, that it's higher fidelity, that it actually has better sound quality that is more true to the original sound that you heard in the room. That is complete horseshit. Vinyl records, you might like the way they sound, but they do not sound any more like what you heard in the room than a good digital recording.
In fact, you know what? All my life, I would notice this incredibly huge gap between the sound of a live performance and a recorded performance. It wasn't until I started getting FLAC downloads of, like live recordings and other, high quality super audio CDs and playing them on my surround sound thing that the drums sound like drums because I have a giant subwoofer, but nothing else sounds live. And that's with, a 5.1 surround sound system and a fancy computer and a fancy sound card. So there's no way your vinyl, which I listen to plenty of vinyl in my life, sounds even close to what it sounds like when you're in the recording studio.
You also, in addition to having to, super equalize the sound by cutting off the bass and pumping up the high end, you have to usually do a whole bunch of tricks to make it sound like anything rational coming out of that record because the medium is just so horrible. Finally, last and certainly not least, records degrade rapidly. The claim that records last longer on the shelf than CDs is complete BS. Records are so prone to heat damage, moisture damage, dust damage. You wouldn't think about that, but they collect a lot of static electricity. And as a result, dust, very small dust, will get in the grooves and stick to the record in a way that is almost impossible to remove.
Yeah, that's another thing. And you have something that's an analog storage format, it degrades, as in it plays well, then it plays kind of okay. Then
in fact, there were standards for how rapidly records would decay. And you know what? There is noticeable decay on the first playing of a record.
Yep.
A noticeable and significant decay.
Yep. However, CDs are digital. They either work or they don't. You either hear the sound that's on the CD perfectly, or it skips and a lot of the sound is missing, which means it's broken and scratched. Those are the only two possibilities of the CD.
Now, there is one other reason that a lot of people like vinyl and are moving toward vinyl. And in fact, well, not a lot of people, but these people. And this is something that a lot of DJs are doing these days, where they'll make a mix track or something, and they'll make a small dub vinyl, usually in a custom shop or in their own home equipment, to give to other DJs to use in their mixes. They do this in order to make it more difficult for people to take their beats and play them too much, because they're afraid that if their beats are played too much, they'll become overplayed and therefore unpopular and stupid.
If you're an awesome DJ, you should be making new beats more often. That's all.
No, not even that. Not even that. That argument is stupid because they claim, oh, all right, so you made this record of your thing. And they always say, yeah, if you try to convert that record to digital, you lose something. No, you don't. You can perfectly recreate that first playing if you record it to a good set of digital equipment, and then you now have a digital copy that will never degrade again forever. It in no way protects your media from anyone copying it. Yeah. In the end, to move on, I just want to say that this whole news about vinyl becoming more popular is pretty much complete horseshit. It is not becoming more popular. It just had a slight upswing in sales that is being used by the PR marketing machine to try to get you, the youth of America, to purchase more vinyl albums, when in fact the only people actually purchasing them in any significant quantity are DJs.
And those are the only people who should.
Hockey fights of the day!
Oh, it's still hockey fight week. And I think the hockey has begun as of right now. The preseason hockey has begun.
Now, we'll go kind of briefly, but the two hockey fights I chose, now I chose two today for a very important reason, illustrate probably all of the important aspects of hockey fighting. Now, the Detroit Red Wings and the Colorado Avalanche had a bitter, bitter rivalry going on between them. That's one of the big things about hockey is the rivalries between all the teams.
As in any sport, rivalries are key.
Yes, of course, in most sports, they don't come into straight-up fistfights. Now, the Red Wings and the Avs were fighting. They were fighting literally. There's a fight going on, and for various reasons, Mike Vernon, the Red Wings goalie, and Patrick Waugh, the other goalie, charged each other and had a knockdown, drag-him-out goalie fight in the middle of this other massive fight where the benches were cleared. And the whole time, the commentators are like, what's going on? The goalies are fighting. Ah! It's crazy. Happily, Vernon kicks the guy's ass.
Well, it's super rare for a goalie fight, because a goalie is covered in, armor, serious armor. So no one's going to fight with that guy because you're punned, even if he's, kind of weak relative to
Well, not
you.
only that, but think of this. The goalie's job is to stand there and get shot by pucks constantly. Do you think you can punch faster than a puck?
Yeah, you're not going to scare him with your fist if if he's not afraid of pucks.
So they have this big fight. And now, the video really illustrates a big important part about hockey and hockey fights, is that if you keep watching the video after the fight cools down a bit, you see two guys who had been beating the hell out of each other. They're both bleeding and broken, and they're standing there kind of skating around, holding on to each other, and they're not fighting anymore. They're talking. They're just talking like two dudes. They're probably saying, man, that was a great fight.
That's how hockey works, and that's why fighting is okay in hockey, and they don't just arrest everyone for assault and throw them in jail like they would if, say, two basketball or two baseball players got into a fight.
Of course they do. I mean, there have been incidents where someone started a hockey fight that was actually completely uncalled for.
Yeah, but, when that happens, everyone recognizes, oh, that guy's really fighting and not hockey fighting. We better do something about it.
Well, usually what they do is if that guy is ever let to play hockey again, he gets attacked in pretty much every game he plays until he quits the sport.
Yeah, you don't want to have,
It's a self-regulating industry. Now, I'll skip all that because the other important part of my thing of the day is that almost exactly 1 year later, now Chris Osgood, who in the previous year was Mike Vernon's junior, is now the Red Wings goalie, and Patrick Waugh is still their goalie. And sure enough, during this big fight, Waugh comes out of on the ice, and this ref is trying to hold him back. Like, no, you don't want to do this. Go back to your side of the rink and sit there. And then he kind of misdirects the ref when he's distracted, and he charges Chris Osgood, and he skates around.
This guy just, wants to have goalie fights, probably because he thinks it's like a novelty. So he's like, I'm going to be the goalie who fights.
Well, he was also pissed at Osgood for a number of reasons I won't get into. He was also mad at the Red Wings. So he's circling around over there, and Osgood is still wearing all of his gear, and he's standing there like, I don't want to fight you. What the hell? So finally, Osgood's like, all right, and he rips his mask off, takes his gloves off, and skates out. Now, Chris Osgood is about 2 feet shorter than this guy. He's a tiny little dude. I met him. He's shorter than me. He's this tiny, tiny little dude. He's also, I'm pretty sure, had never been in a fight in hockey. At least not in the NHL up until this point.
Yeah, I mean, imagine that. You've been playing hockey for a long time, but you were never in a fight, and then all of a sudden, you've been playing for years, then all of a sudden, a fight.
And this really big guy comes over to kick your ass.
That's a scary thing, let me tell you.
Now, Osgood does a classic boxer strategy when someone has longer reach than you. He moves in and as close as he can and absorbs a bunch of blows on purpose, trying to get close, because the closer you get, the less hard the guy's hitting you. And then he proceeds to thoroughly kick Patrick Waugh's ass.
That's pretty unexpected. I mean, you've never been in a fight. You don't want to be in a fight. Some guy comes over and challenges you. You reluctantly go into a fight, and then you win.
I was watching that game on TV when it happened as a child, and you can even hear in this video the entire arena chanting, Ozzy, Ozzy.
Yeah, people will get up. If there's a goalie fight, people will freaking get excited like nobody.
They didn't calm the audience, the crowd down for at least 20 minutes. It was just chaos. It was pandemonium.
If I was a goalie in hockey, I would. If anyone came and messed with me, I would start a fight with them because if it was worth it. Just because everyone would get all excited and then my team would win. At least if it was at home. Away, I would never do that.
Now, before I let Scott go, there's one other nice trivia bit about Chris Osgood that is very interesting. He was the either second or third goalie ever to be credited with a goal scored in the NHL.
Yeah, I remember Martin Brodeur was the champion of scoring goals as a goalie. He would go for it. Now, other goalies would it might happen by accident, Brodeur used to go for it. Like, if it was an empty net, he would try to get the puck and shoot it all the way down the ice.
Yep.
He did it like 2 or 3 times, too.
I'm pretty sure Osgood was, if he wasn't the second person to do it, he was the second person to do it on purpose and be the sole person who scored the goal on purpose. He saw an opening, he shot, he got a goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, goalies have gotten plenty of assists in the day.
Yeah.
Okay, so this hockey fight, which I present to you today, is a classic. Not so much because of the fight itself, even though the hockey fight itself is quite a marvel to behold.
Yes, if you've ever seen Family Guy, ho down, hoot nanny, it is that kind of fight.
That is exactly what this fight is. And what makes it more entertaining is the announcer. Now, the guy isn't that great of an announcer, but when this fight starts, he goes, the 2 guys fighting are Tasker and Sen. I don't know what teams they're on. I don't really care. I've only seen this fight on the internet.
1,000,000 times because it's widely regarded on the internet as the best hockey fight ever.
Yeah. And basically, the guy starts, when he's announcing, he's like, Tasker with a right, Sen with a right, Tasker with another right, a right and 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 a right. And it's just hilarious because they're basically both, each guy is holding the other guy's jersey with his left hand and then throwing haymakers repeatedly and rapidly directly into the face of the other guy.
They're all connecting. It's just bam, 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 bam.
And they're both they're swinging at exactly the same speed and power, just over and over again. Just punch to the face, punch to the face, punch to the face, punch to the face. It's so great.
And you can see their faces becoming more and more bloodied and purple as this goes on.
It's like these guys, they kind of size each other up. They take the gloves off, they're putting up the dukes. And their faces are nice and, well, as nice as hockey players' faces can be.
Hockey fighters.
Yeah, hockey players' faces are, without teeth or anything. And then, they just go, wham, 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 and the faces just turn red and then purple and then God knows. I wouldn't want to have been either one of these guys, but I love watching them. It's just like the best hockey fight. You got to see it. All right.
Anyway, on to the main bit. Today, we're going to go back to our traditional actually reviewing anime.
Oh my God, reviewing an anime. I wonder who's going to be happy. Our listeners, hooray. Okay, the anime we chose to review today is called Kemonozume, and I think Rim wants to avoid saying the name out of fear of saying it improperly.
Actually, just because I didn't write it down in front of me, and I can't easily use my computer while I do the show.
Yes. Kemonozume is a brand new show this season, and we watched 2 episodes. So this is like a 2-episode review here.
Yeah, and there are 2 episodes out, so it's more of a preview than a review, but I have high hopes for this show, and I'm going to watch it all.
Yeah, I'm almost definitely going to keep watching the show. There's a 90% chance I'll watch it all, but it is possible that somehow the show could take a wrong turn and end up God knows where.
Now, it's directed by Masaki Yuasa, who, as far as I can tell, hasn't done anything of note other than be a key animator all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like he's done, a few shows, and he's been like an episode director or a storyboard guy or a layout guy. I think he designed a character here and there.
But this is the first show where he really, it's all him. This is his show.
He's directed like 2 movies, but this is his TV show. He's the director. He wrote some scripts. He directed some episodes. He did storyboards. He's all over this show. This is basically belongs to him, and it as part of Studio Madhouse, I think, right? Yep, it's a Madhouse production. Those are the same people who brought you all sorts of other awesome shows.
Now, the main notable things, because if the show had been presented any other way, it probably wouldn't have been so good, but it's a combination really of the style of animation, the presentation of the plot, and the elements that are in the show as a result of this plot.
The monkey?
Yeah, I was going to get to the monkey.
Okay.
And I had a third thing, but Scott won't shut up about the monkey.
Wee, the monkey.
Let me just say that the show has a monkey in it, and we'll get to that in a moment.
Yes, we will.
Now, the plot is actually very simple, though first of all, the opener is very stylized. The moment you start watching this show, you realize that this is not like other anime.
Yeah, the opener kind of reminds me of the Cowboy Bebop opener a little bit, in like the way the colors are used and the way that it like breaks it up into panels and the style of music a little bit.
I really like the opening song.
Yeah, it's a good song. It's all jazzy and hip and cool and everything. Unlike a lot of other, the typical J-rock, J-pop, idol openers or the, boring atmospheric opener. this is actually, something I'd want to listen to, and I won't skip over the opener every time I watch the show.
Yep. Now it starts up with this pretty boy and this ugly guy sitting in some fancy club, and they're sitting there talking. And the pretty boy is talking about his taste in women, and he likes the younger girls, and he gets them all the time, and he keeps talking, and the more he talks, it starts getting more and more disturbing, and finally, in the end, you realize that he's not talking about sexual conquest.
Oh, yeah, we're going to spoil, the first episode.
Yeah, he is talking about killing and eating them, because he is, in fact, a shokujinki, a monster.
Yep.
A flesh eater.
The story of this world is that there are people, and they're also flesh eaters.
These horrid monsters from ancient times that eat people.
Yep. And there is a group of swordsmen.
The Kifuken.
The Kifuken. They have the Kifuken technique, or I don't know, whatever you want to call it.
Style.
Yeah, Kifuken style, whatever. And these are swordsmen, martial artists who basically their job is to fight flesh eaters. And, occasionally, I like how it's never actually about the fight. Like other fighting shows, it'd be like, oh, here's a fight. In this show, fights are just kind of like, they killed a flesh eater. Oh, look, here they are fighting a flesh eater. And it doesn't happen too often. It's mostly about the lives of people whose job it is to fight flesh eaters.
Because they treat it like a straight-up job. I mean, it's literally this 9-to-5 thing for these guys.
Yeah, it's like, they'll just be out in the field casually, there's a monster, they chase it down, they use their weapons on it, they kill it, and there you go.
Now, it turns out that the ancient flesh eaters were somewhat different from the ones today, and now there's this new kind of flesh eater that's appeared that looks just like a human, and in fact, when you kill them, they turn back into humans, and there's no way to know they were once a flesh eater.
Yeah, it gets kind of tricky because, they'll be walking down the street, there'll be a person, and they might not know the person's a flesh eater. And then, someone got eaten. What are you going to do?
Now, if that were just it, the show would have been okay, because it's got this interesting style and this interesting plot. But before we talk about the plot further, first, there is this scene with a monkey.
Well, it's basically the second half of the first episode. The second half of both episodes was the monkey.
Yeah, so far the monkey is really kind of there in a big way in every episode.
Yeah, it's like we're watching the first episode. Halfway through, this monkey shows up, and he's there until the end of the episode. The second episode, the monkey shows up halfway through the episode, and he keeps poking his head in until the end of the episode. I think the monkey is like... he takes over in the second half of every episode.
I cannot spoil for you what the monkey does. Watch the first episode of this show, and once you see the monkey, know that something awesome is about to happen.
The monkey is hilarious, and he's so cute, too, the way they draw him. And if you go to the official Japanese website, this is really cute, 3D animation of the monkey, where when, you hover over the menu items, the monkey, changes his pose. It's so great.
Now, in addition to that, the monkey pushed the show from pretty good to I have to watch all this by itself. But also, so they fight this flesh eater, and they kill it. The pretty boy who was killing the girls.
Oh, that reminds me. The name of the show is Kemonozume.
Good job.
Yeah. And that apparently means, monster claw or something like that.
I believe it was Emily who told us that.
Yes. And... the way they kill these monsters is by cutting the hands off.
Yes, their claws are very powerful. That's the source of their power. And that plays a lot into how they animate the flesh eaters later, too.
Yeah, it's like the claws is where it's like the weak point. If you were fighting them in a video game, you would shoot all your bullets at the claws. And when the people who are actually flesh eaters in disguise transform into flesh eaters, the hands are the first part to turn into claws, Now,
if you look at the cover art for the show, you can see that drawn out very explicitly when it shows a girl who is beginning the transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other point at which the show became awesome is so far it's animated in this really... I don't want to say low budget, but just really interesting style where the characters are all kind of ugly.
Yeah, well, it kind of reminds me a little of Dr. Katz in that you have these they're not these clear, super pristine lines that you get in most other anime these days. They're kind of wiggly and moving, and every character is identifiable by their hairstyle and their complexion and the size and shape of their body, but they're not static. They're kind of, moving around and... they're not always drawn with the exact same lines in the exact same place. And it kind of also reminds you of that Windy Tales anime.
Yeah.
I think that's the only other animation I've ever seen that's like this.
Now, so far the show goes on. They have this fight with the Flesh Eater. Now, the main character, Toshihiko, who is the master of the style, other than the father who actually runs the school, he has a problem. Whenever he is about to put the killing blow down on a Flesh Eater, he gets crippling stomach cramps and diarrhea.
Yeah, the way they animate it is pretty hilarious, but they never really explain why it happens.
But the thing is, it happens, and everyone we've shown the show to goes, "What? Why did they just show? What's going on? Has he got problems with it?" And then right away in the next scene, the one of his guys walks over and he's like, "Man, you always have diarrhea, just when you can't."
I don't. It's like he can't control his bowels when he's about to kill a Flesh Eater. I don't know what's wrong. I think it's going to be a major plot point later on, but in the meantime, it's strange yet hilarious.
Yep. So anyway, after the fight, now they beat this Flesh Eater, and they go back to the school, and they're talking about, yes, Flesh Eaters are back. Now we have a purpose. We're going to go do our thing and save people. And then the other main male, I guess, I forget his name, but the silver-haired guy, who's kind of
the silver-haired guy, I think, is his brother. Or his stepbrother, who knows?
Well, no, I think he's the legitimate brother, or the legitimate heir at least, and Toshihiko seems to be adopted.
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't be surprised if Toshihiko were a Flesh Eater and didn't know it, or something weird like that.
I don't know either what's going on.
I got a lot of speculation about this show.
It seems to be, though, that most of the family is able to, detect a Flesh Eater, even if they're in disguise. You know, it's like they just kind of know, and they can figure it out real quick, because that's what they've been doing for centuries.
Yep. But they're having this talk about, fighting the Flesh Eaters, and suddenly this guy and, one of his subordinates, they start an argument, and they stand up, and they actually have ready and waiting a 3D PowerPoint-style presentation showing how this giant robot powered armor that this guy has designed is the way to really fight these things, and this pussy sword technique is useless, and they should get rid of it and use this robot.
Yeah, well, see, part of that, there's two sides to that. There's actually three sides, kind of.
I really felt like Daryl Surratt when I was saying that part, because that's the kind of thing he would say.
Yeah, is that the Toshihiko guy who's going to, inherit the family, whatever, he actually is better at sorting than anyone else, despite his diarrhea.
He's pretty much better at sorting than everyone else in the family combined, except for the father.
So this guy who's second best at sorting is, he wants to get with the roboting instead. He's like, you're better at sorting. That doesn't mean anything. I'll do roboting, and my roboting will beat your sorting. This is what I can do. And there's another aspect is that he's kind of an ass when he does this.
The character reminds me very much of Saionji from Utena.
Kinda, yeah, a little bit.
Well, the way
that guy from Gasaraki, like the younger brother who's kind of like, "Grr, why is the older brother so much better?"
Just Saionji in terms of the way he talks and his inflection and the way he holds himself.
Yeah, he's being kind of an ass. But on the third
it's the whole he's arrogant because he's actually kind of self-conscious.
Yeah. But the third point is that he's kind of right. The robot does kick ass, and it'll probably kill a lot more Flesh Eaters than swords will. Go with the robot. Woohoo!
Yeah, but then, the father, they always say things like, but you don't understand. And they actually make a point of talking about how the name of their style has many meanings, and one of the meanings is keeping your inner demons contained. Yes.
So perhaps using the robot would be putting the demons in the robot and not containing them.
Or maybe, because I'm the one who always puts forth the crazy guess at the beginning of every show before I know anything. Maybe everyone has the potential to be a Flesh Eater, and everyone has that darkness in their heart, and that's the point of the whole show.
Oh God,
that's my
who would have seen
guess.
that coming?
Yeah. Well, you know who would have? Rim on Geeknights.
Yeah, that's right.
I got it right here.
So anyway, the main plot of the show. Now, this is a spoiler for the first episode, but it is not a spoiler for the show. It is basically, if this show came out, this is what would be on the back of the DVD.
Yes, we're not going to ruin what happens in the second episode when that plot gets resolved in terms of you wonder which way the show is going to go. Because once we explain what happens...
It's like episode 1 tells you what the show's about, and episode 2 shows you how the show's going to be about that.
Because it could have gone in all sorts of directions.
It could have.
Now, Toshihiko is really frustrated because of his bowel problems, his brother problems, and there's a really cool girl.
Well, no, there's the monkey.
Yeah, there's the monkey. I'm not going to talk about how I'm not going to ruin the monkey plot point.
All right.
I was talking about him and the reason he's kind of distraught. There's a girl that he was betrothed to when he was young, and it looks like it was an arranged marriage that was canceled.
And she likes it, and he doesn't like it.
Yeah, well, he is just devoted to the sword, and she likes him, and she's also devoted to the school and the sword, to a degree.
But not as much. She likes him, and he doesn't like her, and it was an arranged marriage. And everyone else seems to want them to get married, except for him. Toshihiko doesn't want to get married. So even though his wife is... supposed to be wife does.
So one thing leads to another, and he is almost landed on by this parachuting woman named Yuka, who is, in terms of this animation, she is obviously a very beautiful woman.
She's obviously some hot blonde chick.
She is presented and drawn as incredibly beautiful, and he falls in love with her immediately. And she obviously, at first sight, has feelings for him.
Yep, and then, things go.
Now, at this point, the first thing I thought when I saw this woman's face was, there is no way on this green earth that she is not a flesh eater.
Yeah, well, it says that that's what the show is about, is a guy who fights flesh eaters, randomly by chance falls in love with a flesh eater without knowing it, but then he knows later and, stuff happens.
Well, the thing is, the first episode ends on, he's met this woman, they end up being together, they're in his bedroom, they're making love, and then there's a flash because there's a storm going outside, and as soon as the lightning flashes, her mouth, she starts to transform a little bit, and then she goes back to normal.
Yeah, she kind of contains it so that he doesn't know. And he's a little preoccupied.
Yes.
So he doesn't notice.
He's quite preoccupied, but she is obviously trying to resist the fact that she is about to transform into a partial flesh eater.
Yep, or a complete flesh eater and then eat him.
Yeah. And then the episode ends, and I don't want to ruin anything about what happens after, but I think it's obvious that the show could have gone in any number of directions from that point.
Yes, the direction that it will go in is determined in the second episode. And beyond that, we don't know because no episodes are out yet. So what can we tell you?
I really like this show. I mean, pretty much the shows right now that I really like are Nana, Ouran High School Host Club, and possibly the new Mushishi, probably the new Mushishi, and this show right here.
Yeah, this show right here is definitely what I'm looking forward to, and the new Death Note is coming in October 3rd is when episode 1 is going to be on Japanese TV.
I refuse to have an opinion on that because I'm worried that it won't be good.
I'm hopeful that it will be good. At the very least, it'll be some cool animation of Ryuk, which will make me happy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my problem is that Death Note is almost entirely people thinking about things a lot.
Yeah, I'm wondering what they're going to do. I'm thinking of watching it with the manga in front of me to compare.
Ah.
I won't do that the first time I watch it, but I'll watch episode 1 again while holding the manga to see if they do things in the same order or if they leave things out and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, yeah. Kemonozume, very cool show. You should definitely watch it. It's about a guy who fights flesh eaters who ends up going out with a flesh eater.
The show is really neat. I don't care what kind of anime you like. I think there's a chance you'll like this because it doesn't really fit into a lot of the other stereotypes of anime.
Yeah, this seems to me more like the thing that would have ended up as a very cool manga that I would buy every volume of, sort of like Monster a little bit, but it ended up as an anime, so way to go. Awesome. And there isn't a manga for it.
Plus, there are only 2 episodes out, and it's very easy to get on Anime Ski.
Yep. So go get these episodes and watch them for awesome. I mean, even if you don't care about fighting monsters or drama of dating a monster, there's a cute monkey. You gotta watch for the monkey.
Yes, if nothing else, the monkey is worth the rest of the show so far.
Yeah, so even if you hate the rest of the show, the style makes you nauseous and all that, at least watch the first episode for the monkey. All right. Got anything? I think we got some metabits, actually.
We have metabits?
Oh, a few.
Like what?
Well, I upgraded the forum today.
Yeah, the forum should be a little bit faster. To all you people who were complaining to me last night about how slow it was getting.
Yeah, well, I upgraded the forum, and I upgraded all the extensions on the forum that had upgrades available. So if there are any problems with the forum, let me know. If you're not a member of the forum, join it. What's wrong with you?
Yes, there's a lot of stuff in the forums.
I added a new feature to the forum. If you go and edit your profile, you can type in your Xbox Live username to get your gamer tag in your profile. I can't test this because I don't have a gamer, Xbox Live account, but someone who does can go test it out and tell me if it works. I think, yeah, so the forum should be awesome now.
And that was Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for our opening theme.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com. If you like our podcasts, you'll love our forums. Make sure you visit them. You can send your email feedback to geeknights@gmail.com. And if you want, you can leave us a voicemail at 206-333-1537.
Geeknights airs every weeknight, Monday through Thursday.
Geeknights is recorded with absolutely no studio and no audience. But unlike those other talk shows, it's actually recorded at night.